There's a gap between the old guard Democrats and the new guard Democrats. The new guard Democrats want Biden out. And it is obvious that they want Biden out because they are using the same tactics that Democrats have been using on Republicans against Joe Biden. The war on women meme has now been extended to Joe Biden. The revolution eats its own. And it is fascinating to watch. Democrats have been trying since 2016, and even before, in 2012 they tried it, with Mitt Romney to suggest that Mitt Romney was fighting a war on women. So when Mitt Romney said that he had binders full of women so that he could seek female employees to give them better job opportunities, the left jumped on that to proclaim that Mitt Romney, the most anodyne, milquetoast human being who has ever walked this earth, was actually a terrible, terrible sexist. And then, of course, they had more material to go with President Trump, so they went with that with President Trump too. It was a war on women. This war on women meme, and it was pushed by the media over and over and over. You can always tell who the enemy of the progressive left is by who they are using the war on women to target. And this is what you're seeing now being used against Joe Biden. Hilariously enough, after 8 years of ignoring the fact that the guy gets handsy with pretty much everybody. So there's a piece by a woman named Jennifer Senior in the New York Times, and it's called What We're Not Talking About When We Talk About Joe Biden. And you're seeing the Democrats and the left extend the definition of the war on women from actual harm to women to stuff that could be perceived as harm to women, because they're broadening the war on women specifically to take out political opponents. Here's what Jennifer Senior says. She says, "This week it's Joe Biden's turn in the MeToo barrel. And like many Democrats, I'm torn about what to think. The allegations by Lucy Flores that in 2014, when she was running for lieutenant governor of Nevada, the VP touched her shoulders and kissed the back of her head cannot exactly be dismissed as an outlier, given that another allegation of gorilla nuzzling following just 72 hours later, and that multiple photo montages online suggest a similar pattern. And so we have another debate about male decency and respect, trying to weigh creepiness against over-exuberant affection, handsiness against glad-handing, all the while remembering that this is Joe Biden we're talking about, a retail politics guy from another era, known for arm grabs and bear hugs. He is by nature a physically expressive fellow. Hugs are not unfamiliar to him. These gray zone allegations are, of course, still worth examining, but because they are salacious, because they are embodied, because we can see them, I wonder if we spend more time discussing them than another gray zone problem that, in my view, is far more pervasive and often less easily solved with a sharp rebuke or a complaint to human resources, not being taken seriously." And here's where we go. That if you are a male and you side with Joe Biden here, it's because you're not taking women seriously. Or if you are a male who has not participated in any form of sexual harassment, if you're Mike Pence, you are guilty of not taking women seriously. So the war on women has now been extended outward to include not taking women seriously. Now, what does she mean by not taking women seriously? Basically, anytime a woman feels like she's not being taken seriously, we're supposed to believe that this is based on sexism. The subjective perception of the alleged victim is all that matters when you're not being taken seriously. Now, as a human being, there are many times when I have been not taken seriously. My employees, I'm sure, feel routinely not taken seriously. Sorry, guys. But the fact is that does not mean they're not being taken seriously, or that that's a crime, or that that's sexism in some way. But Jennifer Senior says, here's the truth. Some of the women I know have Me Too stories, but most of the women I know have stories about feeling dismissed, invisible, and less than. Okay, but how were they mistreated? She says, what are they talking about? They're talking about seeing their ideas gain traction in a meeting only after a man has said them, or being told after they've asserted themselves in a meeting that they dominated it, or at the least talked too much. Now, we don't know any of the context. We don't know whether it's possible that a woman in a meeting just didn't express her ideas forcefully enough, or maybe she was too forceful. It turns out people don't like men too. How many meetings have you been in where the guy is just a jerk, where the guy is obnoxious? That's not sexism, but sometimes people are annoying. And yet there's a full article in the New York Times now broadening the scope of the inquiry about Joe Biden from he's handsy and physically aggressive with people to sometimes women feel disrespected. Personally, says this columnist, I've been mansplained about my own book. Mansplained is one of the dumber phrases in human history. Mansplained, this pseudo term of art. When is it just explaining something to a human, and when is it mansplaining? Why do you have to assume bad motives on the part of somebody who's explaining something? Like, legitimately, I spend a lot of my time explaining politics to people. That is not mansplaining. That is me explaining. I explain things to my kids. Sometimes I explain things to my wife. Oftentimes, my wife explains things to me. Like, why didn't you take out the garbage? And also, get up out of bed and take out the garbage. Like, people get explained to a lot. But the attempt to broaden out victimhood from originally sexual assault to now you're being nuzzled by a weirdo to exuberant politician to I feel mansplained to is a pretty radical move that is intended to divide Americans.